Welcome into episode 4 of the Eurostat NBA podcast brought to you by the Ledge Sports. I'm Zach Hummel. I'm joined by Cole Little. What's going on, Cole?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. We've kind of, after that frenzy free agency, we've kind of reached semi-doldrums of the NBA season. There's a couple free agents left. We just ended Summer League. But we'll start with Tim Duncan, the quiet one. 19-year career at the San Antonio Spurs. He announced his retirement recently. It didn't get as much publicity as I thought it would because I consider Tim Duncan maybe the best power forward of all time. Some people consider him a center. Do you have any thoughts on Tim Duncan retiring?
Yeah, it's only too appropriate that it didn't get as publicized as you would have thought, right? Because, that just kind of perfectly sums up Tim Duncan. That's probably the way he wanted it. I agree with you. I think he's the best power forward of all time. You can make a case that he's the best all-around big man when you factor in how great he was both offensively and defensively. Throughout his career, never necessarily got the attention he deserved. Never got the credit he deserved either. He's a two-time MVP, five-time NBA champion. Don't really know what else you want from the guy. You look at how many times he was on the All-NBA team, the All-NBA defensive team. He was just an incredible player. But, of course, the fact that he was quiet and he played on those boring Spurs teams, those great yet somewhat boring Spurs teams, he never necessarily got the attention he deserved. But, in a way, I think that's the way Duncan liked it. He's a throwback. Even when he first came into the league, he was a throwback. He's always been very reserved, never been about himself, always been about the team. As far as his retirement, I was kind of hoping he would go one more year. Then he could get, 20 years, a great round number. Not many guys, just a handful of guys have ever played that many seasons in the NBA. With the Spurs getting Gasol, earlier this offseason, they're going to be great again next year. Definitely going to be, if Duncan had come back, still even without Duncan, they'll probably be the Warriors' biggest competition. So it would have been nice to see him come back one more year. I know he only had one more year left on his deal, so I thought that's what he's going to do, play out his contract and retire. But, he said that he just – he felt like the body had given out, and have to admire him for making that decision. He will be missed because, he was a great all-around player, great all-around guy. And he was such a fixture in the NBA, it seems like, for so long. It'll be weird not seeing him out there on the court next year for the Spurs.
Yeah, definitely. We can just go down his accomplishments. 5-time NBA champion, 3-time final MVP, 2-time NBA most valuable player, 15-time All-Star, 10-time NBA All-First Team. Even 8 times on the All-Defensive Team. You don't think it's Tim Duncan as a defensive, shot blocker, but he was for a good portion of his career. And he won the Rookie of the Year in '98 when he came to the league. So, yeah, definitely one of the all-time greats. I think maybe one of the reasons his retirement wasn't as publicized is, I think I said in the second podcast, it was kind of sad watching Tim Duncan this year in the playoffs with the Spurs. He recorded some 2.4-point games. He's definitely not what he used to be. He's lost pretty much all of his athleticism and kind of just relies on positioning, which he did most of his career anyways. But he was sneaky athletic earlier in his career. He could grab rebounds and kind of sky over guys. I always thought his backstory was kind of fun. Growing up on St. Croix, growing up in the Virgin Islands, basketball is not popular down there, and he wanted to be a swimmer. And he ended up, growing to 7'1". I don't think you really have a choice at that point. But I think that's why his game was so, different than a lot of the players that played in the NBA, maybe from the inner city. He kind of developed the old man's game, that classic face-up bank off the backboard from 12 feet, which, everyone will call the Duncan shot from now on. But, and he also gave the NBA – he was one of the worst dressers in the NBA. That was always fun to see him walking into the arena. Everyone else is in, suits, dressed to the nines, or these Russell Westbrook like guys wearing these crazy outfits, and Duncan would just wear jeans and a button up, and
Yeah.
that there's nothing else that really sums him up better than that. He was definitely quiet, low maintenance, but one of the best players in NBA history, I'd have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, defensively, he really never got the credit he deserved. He wasn't an elite shot blocker like Elijah Wan or Mutombo or Wilt or maybe even Kareem, but he was just an outstanding on-ball defender throughout his career. And I mean, a lot of people make the case that he is the best all-around big man in the history of the game, and that's a valid case to make when you look at how great he was in every aspect of the game. I mean, basically everything beside three-point shooting, which obviously he never really tried to do, he was outstanding at. But yeah, like you said, this past season was really the first season that Tim looked really old, especially in the latter part of the year. It's probably part of why the Spurs, they look kind of shaky at the end of the regular season. They dominated the Grizzlies in the first round, that beat-up Grizzlies team. But yeah, then he was just pretty terrible, pretty much a no-show against the Thunder. So it was obvious that, he was definitely well past his prime this year, definitely at that retirement age. But I just thought maybe with the Spurs getting Gasol, Aldridge going to have another year under his belt. Not much would be expected from Tim Duncan next year. I mean, heck, he could have even come off the bench if he had opted to stay, depending on what type of lineup Popovich would have chosen to go with. But, I just, the basketball fan in me wanted to see him go one more year. Just because he's Timmy, and it's going to be weird not seeing him on the Spurs. Ginobili came back. This is probably going to be Ginobili's last year, maybe 2 more years. But it would have been nice to see Tim come back for at least 1 more year, and give it another go at getting a 6th ring. But when the body gives out, it's kind of the smart thing to retire. One thing, Kevin Garnett, a guy I really admire. I've seen some reports he's mulling retirement. But, it's good that Tim opted to retire when he did, because one thing about KG is, these past, 3 seasons, he's been basically nothing more than a role player, because, the body gave out, the skills not even close to what it used to be. So even though it's, KG's going out in an admirable way, helping this young T-Wolves team get their feet under them and get back to, playoff potential. It's kind of sad. It's kind of anticlimactic to see, KG go out like that. So when guys like Kobe, Kobe going out on the 60-point game, Tim Duncan going out, after the Spurs have such a great year, even though it does kind of seem messed up because it feels like maybe they could offer some more. At least they're going out when they, are still playing at a high level, and they can go out with their heads held high. So, I'm happy for Tim. I'm definitely gonna miss him, miss watching him play. Miss watching his boring press conferences. But I understand why he chose to go out. But yeah, Spurs will carry forward. They'll still be a championship contender these next few years at least.
Yeah, he's the first one out of their big 3 of Parker and Ginobili to call it quits. And, in his press conference, he said basketball wasn't fun for him anymore. And I think when you're doing anything, if it stops being fun for you and you have enough money to just kind of retire, I think, maybe he just thought it was the end of it. Duncan seems like a guy who, he doesn't need all the, the records and whatnot. Once basketball was not fun for him anymore, he kind of just called it quits. I also thought it was pretty interesting how he never won a gold medal with the USA team. For being such a great player, he was never involved in one of those gold medal winning teams, which I guess that's not a big deal, but most players want to get at least one gold Olympic medal in their time. And for all the kids out there, he's a 4-year player at Wake Forest. So he really, he came into Wake Forest as such a project, 7-foot tall kid from the Virgin Islands with basically 2 or 3 years of organized basketball, and they really shaped him into the player he was. So that just shows you what 4 years of college can do for a player, especially a guy like Tim Duncan, who was a project coming into the school.
Yeah, definitely. He could have gone pro, possibly even after his freshman season, but definitely after his sophomore and junior seasons, he could have gone pro and still been, a top 5 pick. He ended up number 1 overall in '97. But yeah, he stayed all 4 years. He was great in college. He came right into the pros, and he was ready because as soon as he came in, he teamed up with, like you say, he won Rookie of the Year. He teamed up with David Robinson, and they were the Twin Towers. Popovich, that was early in his head coaching career, and, they quickly became contenders, and they won it all in '99. Was, I guess, this is second season. And, from there, it's all history. They've been great ever since.
Yeah.
He really changed the landscape of the league, really. Because, if you look at how great the Spurs have been and how many assistant coaches have come from the Popovich coaching tree and how many great players have come from that Spurs system and, how they've just kind of been the cream of the crop in the NBA for really longer than any other team since Duncan came into the league. He's just been such an important part. That basically sums up Tim. He stayed all 4 years at Wake Forest when he didn't have to. And even though Wake Forest was good while he was there, it's not like they were an elite powerhouse. They were never big-time national championship contenders, but he still stayed all 4 years, played under the late, great Skip Prosser, and then he came in and played for the great Greg Popovich, played his whole career there. Really changed the game. A throwback, but still just an all-time great player. It's really more credit to him that he was so great in this modern era because, he played kind of an old school style of game. Wasn't much of a jump shooter. And when he was coming up is when big men, maybe not centers, but especially power forwards were beginning to shoot the ball a lot more. Look at KG. He stuck to that style of game and was just a beast. Back-to-back MVPs in the early 2000s. Never really slowed up. Just played his style game. He was called the big fundamental for a reason because he did basically everything right. Great free throw shooter for a big guy. He was just a winner and a true champion.
Yeah, Celtics fans are still pissed we didn't get him in the draft because we were in the lottery that year, and he went first overall and we had the second pick. So a lot of Celtics fans wish we would have had Tim Duncan, but him and Garnett's careers I think will be compared in the history books because they kind of changed the game with that stretch 4. They could both hit 15-foot jump shots. KG maybe a little even better than Duncan, but the Spurs will move on, and like you said, they'll be a championship contender this year with Gasol. So as good of a player Duncan was, and as sad as it's to see him go, the Spurs are one of these teams like the Patriots. They'll move on, they'll just refuel and get better. We can move on to free agency now. In the last podcast, we kind of graded every team and how they did so far with the players they picked up, with the contracts, and kind of the fit of the players. We reported on Dwayne Wade during the podcast signing with the Bulls. Sort of interesting move. He joins Jimmy Butler, obviously, and Rajon Rondo on that team, which are 3 explosive guys, personality-wise and semi on the court because they all like to have the ball in their hand. Do you have any new thoughts on the Dwayne Wade signing with the Bulls?
Well, the whole thing was weird. There have been a lot of people coming out in the aftermath and talking about how things went wrong. Pat Riley said he's still stunned and saddened by the whole thing. A lot of the Miami players were stunned by it. It was kind of weird how it went down. You know, it's strange because he left because of money. Because you know he had sacrificed so much for the Heat, like during the Big Three era, all money he could have made. Even before that, I mean, he's consistently been the most underpaid star in the NBA really throughout his career. And you know, it's weird in this year of the salary cap going way up that he ended up leaving because you know he felt disrespected by the contract offer. You know, the Heat could have kept him. Um, you know that's what's so weird about it. It's almost like Riley didn't seriously think he would consider leaving, and he just kind of messed around a little too long, and Wade decided to go home to Chicago. I know that there were some other teams, you know, mentioned that were in the Wade sweepstakes, such as the Nuggets. But I mean, you know, he definitely wasn't going to Denver. I really think the only team, you know, Cleveland was mentioned too, but they didn't have, obviously, they didn't have nearly the money as the other teams in contention had. But I really feel like the only team he would consider leaving the Heat, you know, a team he's played for his whole career, the only team he would consider leaving them for was the Bulls, his hometown team. Kind of weird he's going there now, you know, because it seemed like the Bulls. I mean, what makes this thing so strange from the standpoint of the Bulls signing him is it seemed like a mere, you know, week before that, the Bulls were about to go back into rebuilding mode almost. I mean, they traded Rose. They showed really no interest in keeping Noah. Of course, he signed with the Knicks to join D Rose there. You know, they were shopping Jimmy Butler around you know draft night, and there were even some rumors the first week of free agency, and then out of nowhere they get Rondo, and then they get Wade to come there. It's just kind of weird. You know, I don't really know what to expect from that team next year. If they still had Noah there, they would definitely be a contender in the East. It'll be strange to see. I mean, it's really going to be weird not to see him in a Heat jersey. I mean, you know, of all the stars, I mean, after all he's been through with the Heat, you know, I really thought he was going to play his whole career there. He's won 3 titles there, of course. But of all the stars who played their whole career with one team, you know, that are all the veteran stars in the game right now, I kind of thought he was the one most likely to stay with that team for his whole career. Because honestly, there were some talks that, you know, when Dirk opted out of his deal that he might leave the Mavs and sign with the Warriors. That honestly wouldn't have surprised me too much. But this Wade leaving Miami and signing with Chicago is pretty shocking.
Yeah, like you said, I don't know if they got a ton better. I mean, they got rid of Noah and D Rose, but they brought on Rondo and Wade. I guess it's addition by subtraction, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure they got a ton better. And you know, they'll still be a top 4 team in the East, which is not saying a lot because the Eastern Conference is dog shit. But that'll be an interesting dynamic, especially with Dwayne Wade, you know, going against LeBron James, because you know, sneaky Cleveland and Chicago have had a little rivalry the past, you know, 5 to 6 years, with Cleveland now getting LeBron and Chicago having a down year. They're both semi back up. Obviously, Cleveland, you know, off the championship, and Chicago getting, you know, Rondo and Wade. That'll be fun games to watch for sure. You know, speaking of LeBron, he still hasn't signed with the Cavs yet. I don't know what he's waiting for. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought he would just, you know, re-up with the Cavs right after they won the championship, but he's definitely hanging them out to dry a little bit. I don't know if they already have a, you know, wink and a nod agreement, but he's still on the free agent market. The best free agents left are LeBron, J.R. Smith, who's asking for $15 million from the Cavs after his finals performance, Dion Waiters, who the Thunder rescinded their qualifying offer, so he's a free agent. I know he's been speaking to the Brooklyn Nets, which I would love since the Celtics have their pick. They could team Waiters, Jeremy Lin, and Tyler Johnson. Those would be the go-to guys, and that would just be no ball movement, chucking threes, one-on-one basketball, which, you know, I would hate to watch, but they would lose a ton of games. The one guy that stands on this list to me that I think could help a team is Mo Harkless. He's a poor man's Harrison Barnes. He can step out. He's athletic. He can rebound. He's, you know, 6'7", 6'8". I think he could come off your bench and guard, you know, a wing on another team. I think he could help a team. Tyler Zeller is still out there. Ty Lawson, Stevenson, who's sort of been an enigma the last couple of years. He had that great run with the Pacers, but he's still out there. And then Monty Eunice and Chalmers. Chalmers, who's a veteran, could help a team. And Monty Eunice, who I think has a lot of potential in the right spot. He can come off your bench and get you a double-double in the right spot. You can step out. You can rebound. Does anyone stand out on that list to you of that could help a team?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the J.R. Smith thing, I kind of feel like maybe LeBron's waiting so long to tally the contract. Probably do that. He, like you said, he was good in the finals. He was really the secret weapon. I think he was the X factor in Game 7. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of weird that it's pushing on. It's still a free agent, but obviously you figure he'll come back. But yeah, the Cavs probably need to try to, they really need to try to work something out with J.R. Smith because they really are going to need him next year. Think about all the shooters that the Warriors are going to have. The Cavs can't have too many shooters really to be able to compete with them if they were to meet up in the finals again. Like you said, Lance Stevens, what a strange career. I mean, you think back to when he was blowing in LeBron's ear and it looked like he was about to be, he was Draymond Green before Draymond Green. He was the jerk, the kind of lovable, not necessarily lovable, but the jerk that people liked and made people laugh. But, a guy who also seemed to be a great rising star. He left Indiana, and it's like everywhere he's been since then, it just hasn't worked out whatsoever. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Because he could maybe flip a switch and turn back on, turn back into the Lance Stevenson that everybody saw play on those great Pacers teams. Like you said, Mo Harkless, solid free agent that's still out there. But to me, the big signing news will be when J.R. Smith finally decides. Because whether or not he returns could definitely determine, whether or not the Cavs are going to be as great this coming season as they were last season, because that's going to be a big move. As far as LeBron, I assume since the salary cap's going to go up again next summer, that he'll just sign another one-year deal and then sign a mega contract next summer. He could actually become the first NBA player to ever sign a $200 million contract. So that would be interesting. Ty Lawson's still a free agent. I saw something today where he's been complaining because, he seems to think that he's had some, drinking-related arrest, and he seems to think that's really holding him back. He's another guy like Stevenson that it looked like he was, on pace to become an all-star level player, and then it just kind of fell off. So, he could still be a valuable weapon. He went to Houston this past season, didn't really pan out. We'll be curious to see where he ends up. As far as waiters, I've seen some reports, like you said, the Nets are talking with him. I've also seen that there's mutual interest between Waiters and the Kings. And personally, I hope he goes to the Kings. That would be hilarious. Waiters and Boogie and all those other morons. That would make for some great basketball right there. Waiters is talk about a guy who people love. Just because they find him goofy and funny. I mean, Waiters, you gotta love him because he's the only guy who won't even be open in the slightest bit, but he'll be begging for the ball, on the court. There were several highlights when he was playing with LeBron at Cleveland. LeBron would be, have a great matchup looking to go to the bucket, and yet Waiters would be, 25 feet from the basket, screaming for the ball. So it would be great to see him and Boogie team up. Boogie and Rondo together was kind of funny this past season, but Waiters and Boogie would be even funnier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird how quickly all the free agents were scooped up. I mean, obviously the new salary cap had something to do with it, but I mean, it seemed like within 3 or 4 days after the free agent period began, pretty much all the significant free agents, with the exception of maybe Wade. Of course, the well-publicized Durant tour was going on, but other than that, you had Wade, and you can't really count LeBron, but Wade and J.R. Smith and a few others were really the only ones left. But still some guys who can make a difference out there, some veteran guys, but yeah, all this big money being thrown around. Most of the key free agents were scooped up fairly quickly, and I guess it'll be even faster next year when the salary cap goes up to around 110 million.
Yeah, how funny is it that we're talking about J.R. Smith as being like a guy the Cavs need to resign, like after all he's been through.
Yeah,
we're talking
seriously
about him as the guy that's the key to their championship, which is, if we said that at the beginning of the season, people would have laughed in our face, but he was really an integral part of their championship run. And like you said, a lot of these guys might be ring chasers, Stevenson, Lawson, Chalmers. They're ending the end of their career, and they want to get that ring, and they'll take maybe less than they would get on the open market. Like you said, waiters to the Kings. He's just looking for money. The Kings aren't ready to compete now. The Nets aren't ready to compete, so I think he's looking for a payday. That's why he's kind of waited it out. But it'll be interesting to see where these guys go, especially Monty Eunice. I think he has a lot of potential in the right system. I think he'd be good with Anthony Davis down with the Pelicans, but I'm not sure how much cap space they have. I think he's looking for a pretty big deal as well. So, there's not a lot left. It's literally picking at scraps from the garbage heap with these guys. But I think once LeBron resigns, everyone will fall into place. I think they'll get J.R. Smith paid and stay with Cleveland. And I think, Cleveland will be strong again, probably win the Eastern Conference. Moving on to Summer League. I'm a big Summer League guy. I love watching the games. I'll stream them at work. Just to see how the players are doing, especially when the Celtics play, because I think I said in the last podcast I wasn't really down with the Jaylen Brown pick, but after watching him in the Summer League, I'm not really sure I love his game, but I do love his potential because I think he's tradable. I think he's literally the best asset we have on the Celtics right now because he's 6'7", athletic. People saw that he can finish at the rim. I don't think he fits in with this team, but I think another team might like him and be willing to give up something good for him. So in that regard, I liked seeing Jaylen Brown in the Summer League. Terry Rozier was also another player that played well for the Celtics. This Summer League was really fun to watch, with the playoff structure they have now. There's games going on all the time. You get to see all the rookies. You get to see international players come over. The announcers have fun with it. And the Bulls ended up winning the Summer League versus the Cavaliers, which is funny. The Cavs won the Summer League and the NBA championship. They'd really have things going for them. The Cavs team was more run by veterans that they signed from overseas clubs. But, did you have any, overarching thoughts on the Summer League? Did you watch any of it?
Yeah, I caught some of the action. I saw Valentine's buzzer beater the other night.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It seems like there were a lot of big time in game shots. Pretty exciting for summer. But yeah, like you said, Rozier looked really good for the Celtics. I guess he's going to be able to make a big impact this year, which is a great sign for them. That they definitely need him. He could be dangerous. A tall, athletic, really fast two-guard. A lot of the big-name guys didn't kind of disappointed. I mean, other than hitting that big game, that buzzer-beating shot, Valentine kind of disappointed. I don't think Hield did a whole lot. Ingram and Ben Simmons, we didn't really see a whole lot from them. But it's still Tyus Jones was kind of a surprise. He was really great. I think he won MVP of the Las Vegas League. And Tyler Ulis of Phoenix, a lot of people felt like he was arguably the steal of the draft. And,
that was a great pick.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. I mean, he got drafted low simply because of his size. I mean, because he, I even heard, I think Dick Vitale this past season thought he should have been, National Player of the Year. Of course, it was really between Heald and Valentine pretty much the whole time. But, a lot of college basketball experts felt like Ulis was the best all-around player, which he arguably was. I mean, when you look at how great he's a great on-ball defender, definitely plays above his size on offense. And, yeah, he was good during the summer league. His former teammate, Kentucky, current teammate with the Suns, Devin Booker, looked really good. Have to give it to the Suns. They've done a pretty good job in recent years in the draft. They have a great young group. Like you said, the Cavs, the Bulls have a solid young group, evidently, based on their summer league performance. The T-Wolves, obviously, Chris Dunn, he struggled with an injury in summer league, but, he's probably going to be able to make an impact early on in the regular season. And, Tyus Jones appears to be ready. Obviously, they already have Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. So, they're definitely going to be a team to look out for. And, post summer league, I'm really interested in the Suns now because they have several good young players. They've done a good job in the draft. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. I mean, there were a lot of good highlights that would always be on SportsCenter throughout summer league. Got a lot of big in-game shots. And the game the other night, the championship game, ended on a buzzer beater from Valentine. So it was pretty exciting. This rookie class is interesting because, like we talked about on the last podcast, you really only had 3 or 4, maybe 5, big-time players who people figured could come in and make an impact immediately. And other than that, everything's just kind of up in the air. Jaylen Brown, it'll be really interesting to see what he does. Like you said, he looked pretty good in summer league. I mean, with him, his athleticism, that's going to be key. He's great at getting to the free throw line. I kind of garnered that from summer league ball. But, yeah, Rozier appeared to come into his own. And Brown, it'll take a little time for him to come offensively. But, the Celtics appear to have a good young core. And so do a lot of teams. The league was pretty exciting this year for sure.
Yeah, like you said, the top guys, they played 2 or 3 games, and then they kind of sat on the bench for the rest. So, Simmons definitely showed out. He had flashes of being that point forward that everyone thinks he is, and Ingram could score and shoot. Dunn looked great in the first 2 games he played. Jamal Murray also looked good for the Nuggets. I love what the Nuggets are doing. I like Hernan Gomez, who played pretty well, and they had this French guy, Peter Cornelier, who played pretty well too. He can stretch the floor. He's pretty athletic. Another guy I liked was Ivica Zubac from the Lakers. Yeah. He could be a defensive player for them day one, just because he'll use his 6 fouls and he affects shots at the rim, which you need in this NBA, as we saw with Bogut in the finals when he went out. They kind of lost that. As it pertains to second-year players, I don't know why Devin Booker played in the summer league. He's already a stud in my mind. I'm not sure why they're running him out. The only good thing that can happen is, we know what he is. He can hit threes. He can hit jump shots. He's working on his pull-up game. D'Angelo Russell also played pretty well for the Lakers. He's still an idiot. He did some post-game interviews where he swore. He seems to have an attitude problem, but I guess most of these guys do. And the last player I want to talk about is the Spurs getting DeJounte Murray. He played really well in summer league. He's like 6'6", point guard. Can finish at the rim over anyone. He had some pretty athletic finishes on the fast break. I think he could. I don't want to say he could live up to Tony Parker, but I think in a couple years we're going to be talking about him as the next Spurs point guard. Once Parker kind of fades, he's on the back nine of his career, and I think Murray will take right over when he's over. So I think they have a great backup plan for when Parker retires on that front. But yeah, summer league was fun. The D League had a team. funny, but those guys, they're all looking for contracts overseas, if not in the D League. So it's a good showcase for everyone to see. In the another second year play I really like was Detroit Pistons Stanley Johnson. He just got a great build on him. He can finish at the rim. He's improving his shooting ability. Great defensive player, can shut down threes and twos and fours even with the size of him. He's built like a brick house. It'll be interesting to see, how these players play in the rookie class. Like he said, there's not really a standout guy other than the top five. So, hopefully some of these players will emerge and be that we can point to that guy and be like, oh, that was a sleeper in the late first round. And, the scouts really get that to pay off because they're doing the grit work all along the college season. They're scouting these international guys. So, if you're picking out of the lottery and still in the first round, you get kind of a steal at the end of the first round. That's a good deal. Unless you got anything else, I think that's it. That's all that's going on in the NBA right now. You got anything else?
I think we're good to go. I mean, I agree with you about DeJounte Murray. I'm not really sure why he fell so late. I mean, I saw some mock drafts not long before the draft had him as a lottery pick, and he fell all the way to 29th overall. So DeJounte Murray, he's definitely one to look out for. Like you said, Zubac with the Lakers, he actually outplayed Ingram, in my opinion, overall in summer league. So a lot of exciting new faces to look out for next year.
Yeah, for sure. Lot of new talent coming to the NBA, which is becoming, we had Duncan retiring, and then we have these guys coming in. So that's a good thing about the NBA. There's always new, exciting young players entering the league, and that can only grow the game of basketball, as we're seeing with all the international guys coming over. So, thanks for joining us on episode 4 of the Eurostep. Take it easy, Cole.
All right, man. Take care.